I'm having a lot of fun these days with my new toy, and this toy is artificial intelligence. AI is definitely changing my business, but also the entire stock market.
Fellow investors, bonjour! This is Mike Leroux, founder of Dividend Stocks Rocks and passionate investor. You're listening to the Dividend Guy blog podcast where I and my co-host Véronique will help you invest with more conviction so you can enjoy your retirement.
Dividend Gold investors, bonjour. Mike Leroux here. You're listening to the Dividend Guy podcast, and Vero is with me, but she's probably too busy laughing right now because once again, we're having a tough time starting the show. But anyway, Vero's with us. So how are you doing, Ve?
I'm doing good, Mike. I really appreciate your kind of Swedish accent. I don't know how to call it, but it's a thing.
Swedish accent. Yeah, I probably picked up that from my trip in Iceland, I guess. I don't know. Like maybe they're like common accent over there. I don't know.
All right, so Mike, it's been over a year since we started hearing more about artificial intelligence and its developments. ChatGPT being one of the most well-known apps, many companies benefited greatly in the late months. Nvidia probably being the most pronounced one. Today we'll look at what is going on with the AI segment and how it changed, or maybe not, our lives as investors.
Yeah, and we are definitely still in the early days of this new technology. And I believe it's more than a buzzword, but I know that some people have abandoned because we're in the early stages, and sometimes, let's be honest, ChatGPT the first, they're not exactly answering the right questions the right way, and you kind of have that feeling where you're just like, oh, this tool's amazing, and then 10 minutes later you're just like, dude, this thing is crap because it's like nothing is right that is coming up from that computer. So we're going to try today to see what's the good, but there's also the ugly part of that AI.
And it's exactly what happened about a year ago when you first talked to me about AI. You said, it's amazing. There must be a way to include it in our work. And I was really skeptical, but I gave ChatGPT a try, which didn't convince me. The quality a year ago was not that impressive at all. However, things have changed a lot in this matter, right?
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of funny because I tried to impress my wife, which is like so far from loving technology already. Mm-hmm. And I deeply failed also to try to have her use ChatGPT for some university work back then. Fast forward today, I think that she could have used it a different way, but I didn't take much time to learn it back then. So I got a lot of like mixed results as well. Mm-hmm. Over the past few months, I've given a lot more thoughts because I've known other people using it with great success. So I thought, okay, so there's definitely something I'm doing wrong here, and it's really important to understand how to use it. And the first thing that I would say is, if you're new to this, the first step is to always treat ChatGPT or any other AI language model as a junior, that you have to be very precise, and you must not open the door for literally thinking. So don't give them too much loose, because then if not, it's going to hang itself. That is for sure. So I was not overly impressed, and still to this date, with the free version, because it lacks a lot. It's limited by the date that it has information. It cannot necessarily go to the internet properly. And I quickly moved on to the paid version to ensure that I have a little bit more options, features. And once you give ChatGPT a good context of what you want, and you do it more like a step by step, it's a game changer. But it definitely takes a lot of time. And one thing that I fell in love with a few months ago, after I came back from Boise at a conference at Craft and Commerce organized by ConvertKit, now namely Kit, it was to create my own GPTs. So then having that discussion with AI to build research tools that you can add parameters, try them, refine them, add more, and ask literally the GPT to improve itself. And then it's becoming something that now I can use almost on a daily basis.
Mhm. Now, in healthcare, listen to this carefully because I find it very impressive. Google's AI has now beaten humans in diagnostic accuracy. So we see great potential in medical imaging, virtual health assistance, and robotic surgery. But my question is, are we there yet? I mean, are facilities or companies using AI in the healthcare in their day to day?
I mean, for the healthcare, I'm quite surprised. I mean, I just learned that from you. That's kind of crazy, and it shows you how fast the technology evolves right now. Where if you're not in a specific domain, you kind of like thinking, oh, okay, so like AI is going to make like a bunch of mistakes in diagnosis, for example, and then it would
Hmm.
likely kill more people than save some, which is already apparently not the case. I've seen a similar transformation in the financial world, which I'm a little bit closer to it.
Hmm.
Chart, that is a software that we use to get some information and, of course, generate most of our charts. You can now use AI to ask general questions such as like, oh, what's happening lately with Procter and Gamble, and then for like large stocks that are like more followed by analysts, it will be able to answer like for like 2 to 3 paragraphs, giving you dates and giving you exactly like what's really happening with the stock with major news, which is kind of interesting. Instead of like doing a full press release, you
Hmm.
just go there, you ask what's happening, and then you have like the latest news. So that was quite interesting. Um, One fellow Canadian, Braden from the Canadian Investor Podcast, started FinChat.io about maybe like 18 months ago or something like that. I mean, he was like one of the pioneer on the Canadian side. His
Hmm.
platform is using AI to analyze financial quarters. And I must say, it is quite impressive. And of course, it's still a work in progress, but it's already working very well. At the beginning, as usual, as any other new technology, it was not incredible. But today, I'm deeply impressed with what Braden and his team has been able to do. So shout out to Braden and FinChat.io. Definitely an impressive platform using AI these days. So yes, I believe that we are now at the moment where several companies are using AI daily without even us noticing. So I
Hmm.
can I can see that even with like apps that I'm using, such as Notion or Grammarly, where they have like AI components
Right.
added to their app, which just enhance what was already there.
Hmm. And you know, generating short videos or images can influence the film, marketing, and art industries. On my side, I can now create logos or visual supports in a few minutes, while we previously needed professional designers to help us. So it does help small businesses like us, but it creates ethical questions and can put some jobs at risk. Do you share these concerns, or do you think it's just a matter of adaptation?
Well, back then when machinery started to appear, people thought it was the end of the classic farmer.
Hmm.
But today, farmers still exist, but instead of like working with a horse, they are working with machinery and it's working well. And actually Deere is now integrating AI into their machinery, so which is kind of crazy, right? That's the full circle. When robots, like the first robots, appeared in manufacturers and in the industrial space, we
Hmm.
thought it would be the end of workers. But of course, the classic farmer, the classic worker in a shop is not there anymore or very limited, but it had created a bunch of new jobs. So I heard someone said on another podcast that AI will not replace you, but people using AI will. So
Ha.
it's really a matter of adapting because yes, you can do a lot more. And I read an article about, and that's completely another topic, but I just found that fascinating. I'm not a big fan of F1 racing, but I'm a big fan of sports. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever I open a new, like whenever I look at a news website, I look at sports news and also financial news. And then this one caught my attention because they were talking about the use of AI in F1. And what happened is, instead of having their engineers, because they have like a full team of engineers, so instead of having engineers analyzing all the data points they have on a car during a race, which is impossible to analyze because we're talking about over 1,000 data points, the engineers use their knowledge and their expertise to build AI analyzing those points. So instead of like
Mm-hmm.
selecting specific data, they could take everything they have on the car and on the road and on the weather and use AI to get conclusions. So the same engineer is now spending his time to analyze the conclusion and like the overall analysis of everything, instead of trying to pick the specific data points that could make the race change. So it's a lot easier for them for the job, but nobody lost their job. They just added skills, gain competencies, and ultimately adapt. So it's really about adapting. I don't think that AI is like some kind of like a revolutionary thing that in 10 years from now we're going to stop working and we're just going to have like robots like
Serving
bringing our
us.
drinks, yeah, serving us. I don't think it's going to end up like Terminators either, but I really think that we can use that as an extension of our expertise and just gain more capacity doing more work in less time, which, you know what, I'm a fan of efficiency. I'm actually obsessed by efficiency. So definitely something that I'm looking forward to.
But still, Mike, AI generated content is also raising concerns about disinformation, especially with upcoming elections. Does it have a tangible impact on us?
Yeah, as much as there's good with new technology, there's definitely bad. And generating false information or spreading information could definitely be easier using AI.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I would never use artificial intelligence to write one of my DSR newsletter, for example, because then it would be boring, basics, and I don't know, like it would be very, very hard to get the same sense that's what I have. But if I wanted to write 10,000 articles or 10,000 posts on social media about information that I would like to spread, which is not necessarily true, well, then that could be definitely a good tool. So, of course, if you are following the election on social media or on websites, just double and triple check your sources. Because, again, even as I use it daily now, even for my stuff that I've like this GPTs that I've built, there's not a day that I don't double check whatever chat GPT is giving me, because you never know when it twists a little bit the information,
Mm-hmm.
or it kind of like goes on its own tangent, because the whole concept of artificial intelligence is about to the likelihood of predicting what's going to come up next. So if you're actually predicting, you have good chances of being right, but you also be a good chance of being wrong. So definitely when it's like information sensitive like this, I would definitely have like at least two or three sources that hopefully would be independent.
Mm-hmm. All right, so now how do you think AI influence cloud computing costs and hardware shortages?
Well, we had that moment where everything started to happen at the same time. The
Mm-hmm.
need for semiconductors rose right after COVID. That created a big shortage. Now it's getting under control, but there's a lot of pressure on producing more. And in the end, what is great is that it created a lot of opportunities for many different companies. So first, chip makers, of course, but then we have data centers. We also have information-based service companies that like Thomson Reuters, for example, that they can use AI to mix with their information. So this rising need across all industries for more chips, literally, will continue to put a little bit more pressure. But so far, I mean, when we look at numbers at Nvidia, and we're going to talk about it like not too long, it's just mind blowing how fast this company is growing, and they don't
Mhm.
seem to be that limited with their production right now.
And what other impacts does it have on technology businesses?
Well, I'd say it's like a little dot com in a sense where right now everything that you put AI in, it seems like an amazing opportunity, but
Mhm.
similar to pages and click views, they don't necessarily pay the bill. And a lot of those companies will just be, like big fires where you throw cash at it and it just disappears in smoke. So you have to be very careful on getting on that train and say, oh, where I'm going to buy like a bunch of AI companies or going for an ETF that track those. So you may think it's going to be a safer play because you're more diversified. But in the end, if most of them become losers, which I think it's going to be the case, and
Mm.
most of the time when you have like big trend like this, there's a lot of money being poured into that specific sector. Then you have tons of companies going on, and eventually most of them crash and burns.
Mhm.
So just pick carefully and don't go over enthusiastic about, oh, that's the next big thing, because the next big thing happens pretty much every 5 years, and in the end you have like a handful of winners and a lot of losers.
Okay, so let's dive into some companies related to AI. Which ones were the big winners so far?
The most obvious, of course, Nvidia, and we're not like a technology oriented podcast, so I'm not going to go like too deep into that. But just to say that they are growing at a mind blowing pace. So over the past 3 years, I've pulled out the numbers from Whitechart. Revenue grew almost by 300%. Earnings per share grew by almost 500%.
Hmm.
The P ratio is at 69 right now,
Oh boy.
which may seem kind of crazy. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it's not when you're looking at now. You're not looking at double digit growth. You're looking at
Right.
triple digit growth, which is just crazy. So when is it going to stop? When is it going to slow down? It's really difficult. Nvidia management is obviously very bullish about their business right now. I mean, I totally get that. So for those who jumped on that train, good for you.
Is it
My
too late?
usual, uh, you know what? I really have no clue. At this point, it went up so high, so fast. I'm just looking at it on the sideline and just not sure what to do with this.
Mm,
I I,
mhm.
I don't have FOMO because I do have other companies that benefits from AI. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stick with my strategy and try instead of trying to go full FOMO on this and maybe buy at the wrong time because it could build into a bubble. A
Mhm.
few quarters ago, we thought it was the case, and then Nvidia came back super strong. So I wish I had a better answer than this one, but I don't. Another one that is greatly benefiting from it in the semiconductor industry is Broadcom. So Broadcom is like well diversified, but they're making a lot of pieces that are required for AI to run. So they're making a lot of money. That was a stock that has been highlighted at DSR since 2018, I think. But now
Mhm.
it has always performed well. Now it has taken off like there's no tomorrow. On the software side, we obviously have Microsoft, which is one of my largest positions. So while I missed on Nvidia, Microsoft, pretty happy about this one. It's getting benefit from it on two sides. So the first one is since the need for cloud business is skyrocketing due to this, they are the second largest public cloud of services. So they've been with Azure, so they benefit a lot from this. And of course, they are a major investor in OpenAI, so they kind of like get firsthand on that technology, include it into their software suite. So they have been doing very good with that, and there's a lot of growth potential. Amazon, for the same reason, for the cloud, are reporting very strong numbers, seeing a lot of like bullish years coming in front of them, and even IBM is getting back brought to life now. I mean, a stock
Sorry,
that,
sorry, what?
yeah, I have to rephrase that, right? Yeah, I mean, for at least a good 10 years, I've been bashing IBM right, left, centers because they were just keep on showing bad results, low growth or no growth at all. And then boom, they are able to integrate AI into their softwares, services, and it's working. Yeah. So even old dying companies can be found a rebirth. It's kind of crazy. I'm not saying I'm gonna buy IBM. I'm just saying that it's going a lot better than it used to. So kudos to them to turn it around. So sometimes with it, and that's what happens when technology. Sometimes there's like, a few years ago, Microsoft was that boring software business
Mm-hmm.
until they spin it off with cloud, and then now they have like a huge portion of their profit is coming from the cloud services. Now they've been a major investor into artificial intelligence, so sometimes they can turn things around, and it's quite impressive. On the equipment side, which is very interesting because sometimes you'll see a company making chips that is going to fail, but those who are selling equipments made their money anyway. So that could be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to take a look at. Lam Research, LRCX, KLAC technology as well, and also ASML. Three companies that are specialized into making different types of equipment that is required for semiconductors to produce chips. So they're really at the beginning of the chain, which is definitely interesting. ASML as the highest technology chip manufacturer equipment. So they are definitely doing well, and it takes a long while to build those piece of machinery, and they're huge. So definitely they have a very long backlog right now, and they're going to keep on manufacturing those. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be an interesting place to look at. But then comes an interesting play where you can find companies in all sectors, pretty much with your curveball that you throw me about the healthcare industry. You have like Walmart and Coca-Cola, for example, that use AI to manage their inventory in a better way. You have United Healthcare that is using AI to improve healthcare delivery and look at potential operational efficiency. We have Equinix, one of my favorite REIT that of
Mm-hmm.
course is blowing up because they have data center. So you can think of like any kind of businesses can use that technology. I mentioned Deere not too long ago. I mean, they're making like tractors and stuff like this, and yet they found ways to integrate technology into this. So literally, there's no limit when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about like something new coming up in the industry.
Hey, dividend growth investors, this is Vero. Mike is currently taking a sip of water, which gives us 10 seconds, and I literally mean 10 seconds to grow the podcast together. Go on Spotify or Apple Podcast, hit pause, and then under our logo, you'll see two very interesting buttons. One to subscribe, hit that subscribe button now, and then give us a 5-star rating. Our goal is to help more investors just like you, so please spread the love. Thank you. So basically, it's about, like you've said earlier, those companies that will adapt to that new technology available to them.
Yeah, because eventually what happens and what we can see already right now is everybody has they're like, oh, we're using AI. Like either it's for the good or just because they don't want to be left on the side, because it's just like, yeah,
Mhm.
me too, I'm doing this. But are you really doing it? Are you doing it the right way?
Mhm.
I've met a lot of people that they're like they're using AI to write content without giving much guidance, which ends up being pretty boring, pretty basic, bullet point form style, which is not adding any value. So, I mean, you can spin off a lot more garbage into the world using new technology, but that's not the first case either. I mean, just the technology that we're using to record this podcast. It's not because you can record a podcast and be like a radio station altogether that you're actually producing good content. There's a lot of like shitty podcasts around. I'm not going to name any, but you get the idea. I mean, anytime that we use a piece of technology, it's not necessarily for the greater good. So we have to be careful and not just think because we read that in a press release. It's kind of like all CEOs are saying this now. Oh, we are investing in technology. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I guess, but not all industrials were able to improve their efficiency and actually perform better
Mm-hmm.
just because they introduce robots in their manufacture. So don't go crazy on this. It's used right now a little bit too much in my taste as a buzzword.
Mm-hmm.
So just calm down and actually look at the real numbers. I when we analyze stocks, I like to say it's important to have a strong narrative and then match it with numbers.
Right.
So if Walmart and Coca-Cola is telling you we're managing our inventory with AI, look at their margins. And if their
Mm-hmm.
margins doesn't improve, I mean, you know what? I don't really care what they use to manage their inventory. They're not doing a better job than they used to 3 years ago. So sometimes it's better to double check everything with the real numbers instead of just going with that hype narrative. That will change in 5 years from now anyway.
Okay, so you kind of opened the door to my next question, and I know pretty much your answer, but I can't help asking. What do you think of AI penny stocks?
Do I really have to answer this? I mean, if you have money on the side and you don't know what to do, and you're not big on going to the casino, well, you might as well play it on the stock market. Maybe you're going to end up picking the right technology that's going to explode, but this is definitely not part of my investment strategy. And I think it's always more important, no matter the topic, when it's trendy, focus on your strategy first. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, when I think about AI, I'm thinking about companies that are thriving businesses that could use a bit of help with AI to actually improve their margin, improve their efficiency. But I'm not going to make a pure play on that. I was already a shareholder of Microsoft, for example, in the past, and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm just happy to keep on riding a new wave. But before that, it was cloud. Before that, it was going from a product launch to a subscription based model with their software. I'm super happy they bought Activision Blizzard to boost their gaming sector. So it's more about a whole strategy than just trying to go all in on like a very niche trend,
Mm-hmm.
hoping that you finally bought your lottery ticket and it's a winner one. So penny stocks, I guess they're good for people that love penny stocks. I'm not part of those people.
And which companies are best positioned to continue to benefit from artificial intelligence?
This is very difficult to answer as a question because right now we have a lot of companies that looks like winners because they have been early adopters, they have worked well with it, and they were able to adapt quickly. But winners of today may be losers of tomorrow. So
Mm.
once again, it's more about having a well detailed strategy, investing a little bit everywhere, and follow the metrics more than the narrative. Because yes, it's cool to say that you use AI, but I like in a year from now, I don't think that DSR is going to be run on AI and we're just going to be sipping champagne either. I mean, I think that we still need to make a good use of it, and maybe yes, we're going to save some cost, but it's going to be most people are going to use it anyways in the field, so we'll just have to adapt quicker than others. But it's the usage that will make us good, not the technology itself.
Mhm. So, to summarize, Mike, what's the place of AI in a portfolio after a year?
Well, you probably got it by now, but if you have invested in any stocks, you probably have exposure to AI in one way or another. The technology stocks have been skyrocketing because it's a very promising place to be right now. Just don't go crazy on it, because if you let your portfolio ride and then you go to 30, 40, 50% exposure to one sector, today's technology, yesterday was energy, the day before it's going to be something else. You just have to be careful with those because it changes all the time. And when investors wake up and it's not what it was promised, it's a really tough morning. So I would say keep your strategy. If you want to get small exposure, it's great, but don't go crazy with that. You already have a good portfolio.
Hmm.
Like going all in AI is not necessarily the answer to all your questions.
And Mike, last question. How did it change our lives as investors, in your opinion?
For the best and for the worst, pretty much like any changes. the thing is, it's easy to get lost. You get even more information, you get more content, you're not too sure about the source that you have. I remember that the first times I've used White Chart AI asking what's up with a company, I remember it was for SX Properties. And it answered me about talking about a utility stock. So I was like a bit lost here. I'm like, dude, you're talking about like grid and electric transmission while I'm asking you about a apartment REIT. So I'm not too sure what's going on here. So yes, it could create more paralysis by analysis. On the other side, once you get to know a little bit more the technology, like I've built some great GPTs that is helping me, for example, to get the earnings calls, to get me a summary. And I always ask ChatGPT to mention the date where the earnings calls happen and to keep providing me with the source. So whenever I find a source that is not necessarily from the company's website or for Seeking Alpha or any like other solid website, I always click to verify what's happening, and adding the date will help me to make sure that it's the latest earnings calls. But this is like an example of a usage that you need to put some parameters to make sure that you can verify the information quickly, making sure that it's the right one and that you can actually use it as an investor. So definitely it can help you save time and move faster to analyze more information, because for the earnings call, that was like a great example where it's really nice to be able to listen to earnings calls, but they're like 20, 30 minutes. You have like a bunch of questions. Sometimes you have like other things to do in your life. So listening to it, making a summary, reading the summary, understanding everything could take a while. Now, my GPT is doing this like within a minute or two. So that is a great advancement for me. But then again, you always have to double check.
Well, thank you, Mike, for your insight on artificial intelligence. Listeners, I hope this episode has helped you define whether you need AI in your portfolio or if maybe you have already some. To ensure your holdings meet your criteria, download your free stock checklist at thedividendguidblog.com/checklist. Help us grow by subscribing to the show and leaving us a 5-star rating. For the show notes and related content, visit thedividendguidblog.com/184. And until next week, stay invested.
Hey fellow investors, it's Mike here. I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Please note that the Dividend Guide Blog podcast is at no time issuing buy or sell recommendation. Please do your own due diligence, as this podcast is recorded for information and hopefully fun purposes only. Make your research, make sure you do your stuff. We're not responsible for your losses or your profit after listening to this episode. And until next one, stay invested.